welcome to our next installment of the webinar. We had a great week last week, and it's going to start with a real good interview for this week. We've got my friend Joe Hunt on the line. Joe, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, mate. How are you?
Oh, just tickety boo. It looks very bright there. So is it good weather? You must be sitting in front of the window.
Well, I've got the sun's just coming towards me now. It's working its way around the house, so I'm actually sat in a good position.
Looks great. So Joe has been with his longest term was with Aston Villa Football Club in England, in Birmingham. In fact, you know, with some of our other coaches, we've got the Birmingham City fans here. So we're going to start away. So why don't you tell us a little bit, Joe, about your pathway, and we'll go from there. And then as we go along, we'll just ask some questions along the way.
Okay. So as he says, I've been in football for it's probably more than 20 years, actually, professionally. I did my everyone's usual path to start with. Obviously, I was in school, and then I went to college, and then I did kind of some further education, which was around 1995. I came out of school and then went to college, and then it was actually at college where I started looking into the professional games. So when I was at college, I actually did a work experience placement at Aston Villa, because they knew I was into my sport and especially my football. And then Villa were my team, so I supported Villa as, you know, literally as I was born. So when I was at college, I did a 2-week work placement with Aston Villa, and it was the community side that I went into. So basically, the community at that point, they used to go out into schools, delivering to the schools free of charge. We used to do soccer schools during the holidays, and I just got a 2-week glimpse of that. And that 2-week really, I knew I wanted to do that. That's kind of my dream. So the good news was I actually did quite well on the placement. So I stayed in touch with the guys at Villa, and then I started doing some match days for them. So every time Villa played at home, we used to have a match day package where children used to come prior to the game to come and do some football activities, just play some games. So I used to work on those, and then for my work on those, they used to give me a match ticket. So if I was getting a season ticket, we did a little bit of work. Which was great for me because I was young, I was a Villa fan, you know, I was doing my coaching, I was getting to watch Premier League football, so it was fantastic. And then during that time, I was still at college, I was still doing my further education. And then once it came out of the kind of further education side, I knew it was football that I wanted to get into. I was never good enough to be a pro player. I was always okay, nice player. So that was my first love. But the next best thing, obviously, is to then coach in football. So I started doing my qualification. So I did my level 2, my FA level 2 back in 2001 it was. And then I was working for a company, you guys probably know it better than me, but they were called Challenger Sports. But I was working for the Challenger Sports. I was working for them. It was their UK model, so they was trying to do the same in England as they were doing in the States. So I was working part-time for them for a little bit, as well as part-time at Villa. But it wasn't very good, to be honest, because they weren't set up to do much in England. But it just gave me a good understanding on some of the community side of it, some of the work that you do with schools. So, yes, it wasn't the best.
So talking about Challenger Sports, I came to the States Challenger Sports with Mel Davis and the rest. So what were they looking to do in the UK? Were they probably trying to mirror the camp process that we're doing over here?
Yeah, so that was the main thing. They wanted the camp, but as you know, there's only 13 weeks of holidays within the schools here. So during the off times, during the school times, they were looking to go into the schools and deliver in the schools during the curriculum time. And that's where I came, where I knew the local area better than them, so I was trying to set things up for them. But I was working kind of full-time hours and only getting like an hourly pay per day, which was ridiculous at the time. So he got to the point where he was like, no, I'm not doing that anymore. And it just so happened I was working part-time at Villa, and I was actually in the offices at Villa talking to the staff there, and I just literally dropped out. I don't suppose you've got any jobs going, because I needed a full-time job. And they went, well, in fact, yeah, we're looking to employ someone. So then the week later, they called me back and said, right, come on in and we'll do an interview with you for the job. So I went back in, and it wasn't an interview. We literally just sat there and talked football for an hour. And then they went, right, Joe, yeah, great. When can you start? I was like, okay. So, you know, over 20 years doing work in football and interviewing people and everything else, I mean, that was just the best interview ever. So I got my first kind of full-time job, literally just talking football. So that was back in 2001, where my title then was a community coach. So I was going to Villa to do the similar stuff as Challenger. So we were doing work in the schools, we were doing soccer schools during the holidays. But the difference was I was working for a professional football club. So when you would phone the schools and say, would you like some coaching from Aston Villa? They were like, yeah, definitely, we'll want that. So that's kind of what I went in as a community coach. So during 2001 onwards, for a few years, that's all I did. So every day I'd go into work, we'd have maybe 2 or 3 different schools per day that we'd go into, and a lot of it was just kind of what you guys call recreational. So it was just, you know, participation, enjoyment, just getting them used to playing football, and also getting the Villa brand out there to, this is what we do in the community. So that was 5 years or so I was doing that for, which was good. You know, it was really enjoyable. I met a lot of good people, you know, made some friends out of it. And it was obviously good for my networking, because, I met a lot of PE staff. And then during that time, there was more of an interest for me in terms of development football, elite football. So that's when I started thinking about my B licence, my UEFA B. So I did that around 2006. Which 2006 was a bit of a crazy year because we had new owners at Villa. So 2006 was actually an American guy called Randy Lerner who bought the club. You guys obviously may know him because he used to own the Cleveland Browns American football team. Him and his dad, so he was very wealthy. And then he changed Villa, and he changed it for the better because, you know, he put more money into it. Obviously, the playing staff, you know, we got better players, we got better manager, you know, so all of a sudden Villa were doing it a lot better. But also he invested in our department. So when I was employed in 2001, we had 4 full-timers. When the Randy Lerner came in 2006, we went from 4 full-timers to 22 full-timers in the space of 2 months. So we just employed all these coaches literally to do what I was doing. Now, because I was already there, I then got promoted to football development officer in 2006. So then I had all these 21 coaches under me at Villa. So I literally went from coaching every day to then I'm in the office, and that's where I took over all that. So that's where my lead side came in, because I am a coach. That's my background. I wanted to coach still. So that's where the elite side came in. So I did my B licence. And then I started working with the boys academy at Villa. So I was doing some of their younger ones, under 7s, under 8s, under 9s. I was doing coaching with them. But at the same time, I also got approached to do some of the girls' elite side, which was interesting at the time. The actual Aston Villa girls were not officially a part of Aston Villa. They had the name, but they weren't run by the club. So it was quite good to get involved, because there was a lot of good girls players at the time, and I enjoyed my coaching with them. But because of my role at Villa, and because obviously I was a manager there, I wanted to bring the female section into the club. So around that time, I spoke to my line manager and said, look, we need to bring the girls in-house. We need to take full control of it, which we did. And then it grew from there. So during that time, I started with the under 12 girls. And I was very fortunate to have some real good players, and they're real good. So that was, as I said, back in 2006, I think it was, I started doing that. And then because I was in charge, I kind of used to be able to get to pick what age groups I wanted to do every year. So selfishly, I decided that I wanted to stay with this crop of players that were good. So I went 2 years at under 12s, 2 years at under 14s, 2 years at under 16s, a year at under 17s, which obviously took me, quite a few years. But I stayed with the core of the group, which were very good. So during that time, we went from an okay elite section for the girls to being ranked #1 in the country, which is, I was quite proud of that. We were competing with the Arsenals at the time, who were head and shoulders above anyone else. But during those 2 years at under 16 and 17, we were the dominant force. We would beat anybody in the country, including Arsenal. So, that's something I always look back on fondly, because we did a great job at producing these players. So from when I got to, I know I'm going off a little bit here, but when I got to under 17s, and these girls obviously were good, the next stage for them was going into the actual ladies team. So we had a ladies manager at the time who reported to me anyway, because I was running the department. And then in 2012, I think it was, he turned around and said, "Look, Joe, I can't do next season for whatever reason. I can't remember what it was, but it fell out of a great time for me, because that crop of players that I had were going into the ladies team." So then I thought, okay, well, I'll do the ladies now. So I took over the ladies team back then, 2012, and I literally just threw all the young players into there. There was a few senior ones that we kept in as well, but we signed, I think it was 8 of the under 17 straight into the first team. So it was a big transition because they were young. It was a massive step from girls football to adult football, but it was a great learning curve from especially that first year. So with that first year, again, another highlight for me, we actually won the League Cup. So the first season in charge, we won the League Cup. I think we beat Leeds United in the final on penalties, but it was a great achievement for us because, half of this squad were 17 years of age. So I did the ladies team then from 2012 to 2017 before I left Villa. Now, during that time, you guys will probably have seen how the female game in England has kind of exploded and got bigger and bigger and bigger. So in 2013, Aston Villa had the opportunity to join the Super League, as it was called then. So they already had Super League 1, which was the Arsenals, the Chelseas, and all kind of the Liverpools and top teams. And they created the Super League 2, which we had to write a proposal for. We had to go to Wembley to present. So myself, the chair, the chief executive, head of marketing, we all went down and had to present to the FA to get into this, which we fortunately did. So once we won that League Cup, we then had to wait a few months to go into actual Super League, which was a summer league at the time. So we got into that. I think it was 10 teams that got into it. So we actually went into, we weren't professional at the time. The top tier were, some of them were paying, but we weren't professional. They were still doing it kind of amateur level. They were still paying subs and things for us. But the beauty of it was we were reliant on our elite girls side, so everything I'd done there we were still continuing to do. So we were still producing players through the youth system at girls level to then come into the first team, and we got a great reputation throughout the country as a club that would do that we weren't throwing money around as a club, we weren't trying to buy players from other clubs, we were literally developing our own and making sure our own players would play in the first team. And that continued, and we did well. It was a great learning curve, not just for me as a coach, because obviously I'd gone from junior football to adult football, so I got a competitive element in there. But we were using young players at the time that really wanted to do well and develop, and we did okay. We were finishing 3rd, 4th in the division, so we were okay and we were competitive, and we just needed, what was the main difference there was we then needed probably a cash injection into the first team to actually go and get some better players to supplement our good younger players. That's what was needed. But the club at the time, because at the time the actual men's first team at Villa was struggling, they weren't investing in anything in the club. So the girls, unfortunately, the ladies team, they never saw a penny because the club got relegated in 2016, which then kind of stopped everything then. So sorry, I know I went off on a bit of a tangent then with the girls' side. So, but
let's go back. Let's talk a little bit about the girls' side there. So you obviously started on the boys' side, and that's really in the UK. I mean, that's where I started. That's predominantly where all of us probably started on the boys' game. You know, I touched a little bit on the girls' game as well when it was starting in Cornwall there. But what was the main differences you were having as a coach when you went from the boys to the girls? What was some of the main? I mean, I've done the same here in the States, so I can tell you what mine were. But what did you feel were the main differences between coaching boys and then moving on to coaching the girls, and even maybe the stigma outside of the club? Maybe we can add that in as well.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing for me is I love coaching. So whether it's boys or girls, I'll still do it. The difference I found, even with younger boys and younger girls, was I found the girls an absolute pleasure to coach, because that they didn't think they'd already made it, as where some of the boys, because they were kind of in the Villa setup already, it goes to their head, and all of a sudden they think they've made it, and they hadn't. They've still got a lot to learn. So sometimes it can be difficult coaching the boys because they think they know it already and they don't. As well, the girls' mentality was completely different. They were very open-minded in what you wanted them to do. Yes, they still would question certain things, which is fine. You want them to have an open mind and ask you things, but a lot of the time they would go and do what you ask them to do. So if you set up in a certain way in a formation, that's what they would go and do on the pitch. They wouldn't freestyle. And sometimes, or majority of the time, the girls, in my opinion, were better team players. That they saw the bigger picture on, well, if I do my job in the team, then the team's going to function better. And if 11 people do it on 11 aside, the team's going to be quite successful. And back then when I first started doing the girls, there was a lot of stuck-up coaches out there that, well, what are you doing the girls for? The boys is better. The boys is this. The girls can't do this and the other, which was wrong. It was completely wrong. The female game in England is behind, obviously, the American female game. It has been for years, but we're making massive steps at the moment to close that gap. But what happened years ago, probably 25 years ago, girls in England didn't start playing until later on in life. So they would literally get to their teenage years and think, okay, well, I'll play football. But when I started, I was fortunate back in 2006 that a lot of the girls started playing at the same time as the boys. So there was a good example I had in my team in 2006, and I still keep in touch with her now, and she's still playing, and she's a good player. But she's a twin, and her brother played for Derby County Academy. So at the same time, you had Ben who was at Derby, and you had Katie who was at Villa Girls, and they were twins. And Katie was always the better player. Always, probably still is now, and she's 25, I think she is now, and she was always the better player. Physically she was always stronger. Mentally, like I touched on earlier, she was always strong. Ben was very weak-minded. Katie was really strong, and dedicated to what she did. But in terms of their physical development, you could see that the girls were starting to develop like footballers from an early age, as well. When they started at an older age, physically they weren't at it, they weren't able to do some of the stuff the boys could do, but now they are starting exactly the same as the boys.
So did you find on the girls, on the social aspect and the training aspect, that between the girls and the boys were more eager to make sure they were doing to please you and please each other and make sure they were doing their job to get better, like we know on the boys' side? I already know it. Like the boys have got the attitude, I already know it, right?
Yeah, and they have, and they still have. I see the Wolves Academy, they strut around that they know it, and the girls are a bit more down to earth on what they do. But the girls can play. It's just a matter of time, and that's why the good thing about England, they've taken the time doing it. But as a country, we are now developing good players, and I'm proud to have been involved. Well, 14 years ago when we started at Villa to actually take it seriously on the girls' game. And now these players, there's some girls that play for me in that team. They're actually playing in the Super League. So there's a girl who's at Man City. There's a girl who's at Liverpool. There's a few at Birmingham City. There's one at Brighton. So they're playing the top tier. And the one girl who's at Man City, she was knocking on the England door, but she did her knee earlier in the season. She did a cruciate, so she hasn't played this season. But she's top end, so and then you've got some that are playing in the next level down. So the twin who I talked about, then she's the leading goal scorer in the Championship. She's actually playing for Sheffield United at the moment, but she's top end. She's very, very good player.
Well, I know you coached against Ellen White as well, didn't you? One time.
Say that again.
Did you coach against Ellen White? She played against you one time when you were doing the.
Yeah, she did.
How did that go?
I mean, that was the big difference back then. Even when I took over the Villa ladies team, they were not full time. So we were sometimes, when we did League Cup games, we got drawn against the full time teams. And it's such a big difference. These girls that we were playing against were training full time every day, football contact, sports science, analysis. They were doing it all, and they played against us. Some of our girls were working full time jobs and then coming to play for us, or they were full time students and coming to play with us. So when we played them, it was hard. It literally was ladies against girls. That's how hard it was.
Yeah, I can imagine. So I'm going to go a little bit on the training methods. So training from the boys to the girls, your training methods, your training methodology, did that change in any shape or form from girls to boys? Sorry, boys to girls? The way you train them, how you train them?
I found it easier to coach the girls. They were a pleasure to coach as well. Sometimes you feel like you're battling with the boys to get things across them, to get them to do what you want them to do. And sometimes it takes a little bit of success from them doing what you've asked them, the boys I'm talking about, them doing what you've asked them to do on the pitch, and they see it, and then you see them thinking, oh yeah, well that works, I get that now. As well, the girls wouldn't do that. You would give a coaching point, and they would go out and they would do it straight away. And they weren't kind of battling against you, as where some of the boys would battle against you because they didn't want to do that. But I don't think I changed too much. A lot of the information. So when I was doing both boys and girls, or doing similar sessions with them, I just found that sometimes the girls' session went smoother and quicker because they were doing it easier, because they were listening to what the coach was doing. Sometimes even back then, yes, the boys might have been physically quicker, they might have been stronger, they might be able to knock the ball around the pitch easier, but sometimes the session didn't flow as well as it did with the girls.
Yeah, I understand that.
I mean, and obviously, with the girls, especially when they get older as well, because they're going through a lot. It's sometimes as coaches, we can be quite not selfish, but sometimes we just think about our session, and that's the be all and end all about what we want to do. But these girls will come in and they've got family life, they've got school life, they've got friends, they've got all this going on as well. Sometimes we might not take that into consideration, and with the girls sometimes being a bit more sensitive, it can, especially as I said, when they get a bit older, it can. It's not challenging, but obviously sometimes their mood swings was quite hard, especially when they got a little bit older. And then it was finding ways of managing that. And one of the best things I ever did was I always had a female assistant coach with me. So they were always the buffer between me and the girls. So, if they were struggling with anything outside of football, then the female coach would be the one they would go to, and they would talk to about that, as where anything to do with football, they would come to me.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So talking about them with their balance of life, how did you feel typically the girls would balance it? Because with the boys, of course, there's a bit more of a professional setting when they get to that full-time stage. But for the girls, they're having to balance quite a bit. How did you what troubles and issues did you have with the balancing, and how did the girls cope with it? Did it affect the performance, et cetera, et cetera?
In the end, especially when you got to ladies, it did affect their performance because they're trying to balance quite a lot. I had girls that used to work night shifts, and they would literally work all night, and then they'll come to Villa Park or wherever we were meeting to go to an away game. So we might then travel 4 hours around the country to go and play a game, and they'd been up all night. So straight away, they're they're not going to be at the level because they're absolutely shattered. They're tired because they've worked. As where when you get to say boys academy or the Villa first team, they're just pampered. All they do is football, football, football. That's all they do. So they know when to rest, they know when to eat, they know when to train. As where the girls had to balance everything, they had to balance loads. So, and obviously the other thing is we only got them. We got it up to 3 times a week training, which was good for an amateur team. It was good. We got them Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and then we played Sundays. So we actually got quite a bit of contact time. But then what we found was the Monday session was more recovery because they played on the Sunday. So it was a lot of just making sure we were doing some good work on the sports science and the recovery side. Tuesday, then we could start doing some more sessions. And then Thursday was really the prep night for then whoever we were playing on the Sunday. But over the course of a week, we would probably have, 2, 4, 5.5 hours contact time. And really an hour and a half of that was recovery. So really it's 4 hours contact time, as where the professional men or the professional ladies at the time, they could have 4 hours contact time in a day because they might be doing double sessions, they might not do analysis, they might be doing strength and conditioning. It was a massive, massive difference. And I've got nothing but respect for the girls that we had and the ladies that we had because they came in and they represented the club well. And we even produced individual programs for them, which they would go off and they would do because we didn't want to waste hours in the gym with only 4 hours. They would go off and do their own fitness work. Yes, we would still do some stuff, but a lot of our fitness work would be football related fitness. So we would do drills that would get their tempo up and, their fitness levels would rise through the work that we did. So in terms of my coaching style, I was always very big on that, even through the younger ages where, because we didn't have so much time with them to do all this work, it was a lot of possession drills. So they were playing at tempo, or we do match related practices where they would play and I would step in, I'd do my coaching point and get out. But always the tempo was always high in all the sessions we did because of the contact time.
Right. Well, from our club, we've taken, funny enough, 3 girls teams back to the UK. So I've seen the Wildcats program, which is the English FA's program, I believe, down in Cornwall. And I can already see just in that girls' side that there's been improvement every time. We go once every couple of years, I guess. We can see an improvement every time we go down when we're coming to play them. So I think the English FA have also doing a good job in instigating a program that can go into more grassroots clubs further down the line. Being Cornwall being as far southwest as you can probably reach.
Yeah,
we struggled on that side.
I've actually, sorry, you just reminded me when you said about touring groups. I've got quite an interesting story for you all. So previously I mentioned the youth team I had was very good. So we got to a level of literally the best in the country. We were the best. We were beating Arsenal. And I remember the one summer, I think it was either 2012 or 2013, there was a touring group coming over from the States, and I can't remember officially, but I think it was literally a team from the East Coast. So I think it was the best players picked from certain regions within America. So it was like a regional team. So I don't know if they still do that. But anyway, they came over. And like I said, we were the best. We were the best in England at the time. We lost 8-0. 8-0. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, the American team, they were lovely. The girls were really, really nice. And I remember watching the warm-up and I'm thinking, okay, well, technically they don't look superior to us. If anything, we look technically better. The big difference was the physicality. I've never seen anything like it in my life. It was such a big difference. And the way the American team played was very simple. They were literally playing to someone, set it, and they would turn it in behind. And then the runners were just on it all the time. They were just on it. And because of their physicality, we couldn't handle it. And the girl I mentioned who's at Man City that's done a knee, she was the best defender in the country at that age, head and shoulders. and she couldn't cope with them. She just could not cope.
Yeah, it's a definitely over here it's definitely a different game. Again, bringing my teams back, the last time I played, didn't concede a goal. We scored stupid amounts of goals against them, but what I did notice was the improvement of the girls and again, we got into Cornwall, so there's probably limited pickings down there, but we did see an improvement there. But one thing we got back was they couldn't believe we could pass the ball as well. I think that was something that resonated with me when I went to bring my girls across. So some good stuff. But I want to move over, unless you've got anything else on the girls' side.
I don't think so. No, I mean, the only thing I would say now is I've been out of Villa since 2017. And during that time, they had new owners come in, which again, so the American owner took over when I was there, and then he left in 2016, and there was a Chinese guy who came in and did run the club very well, and that's the period I left. And then there's an American guy and an Egyptian guy that have taken over the club now, and they've invested a lot of money into it, and they want the ladies to do well. So they've gone from, obviously, what I'd done there in terms of we were always producing players from our youth into the first team. Now they've thrown loads of money at it. So I think I had a budget of around just over £100,000 per year for the ladies team. So they weren't getting paid. So a lot of that was facility hire, transport, kits, and things like that. So we were that. Now I think their budget is over £1 million. So they're actually paying other teams for players. So they bought a player from Birmingham City to bring her back to Aston Villa. She was out play. We developed her, so they've paid to bring her back. So that's where Villa have gone now, because the owners actually thrown a lot of money into it.
And how do you feel that is? I'm guessing you're following the girls' team because you were involved with it. How do you feel that's been for the club? Has it improved them? Has it helped them to get to where they want to be? I'm guessing they want to be in the Super League One, right?
They want to be in Super League One, and they are top of the next one down, which is called the Championship. So they're top, and Sheffield United are second. So if the coronavirus ever goes away, they're going to get promoted. But the issue they will have is if the ladies get promoted and the Villa first team in men's get relegated, it'll be interesting how much money they still pump into it, because obviously the actual club will be in the Championship then.
Well, let's go back to that, because I'm guessing, like you said before, the money that's coming into the club is predominantly the money coming from the men's game. So if they're throwing money at it now, is there in your mind, because you're not at the club now, so in your mind, in your opinion, is there how they making the money to put into the girls, or is it just literally whatever's coming from the men's game and whatever they're throwing at it is literally what they're throwing at it, and when they get to the Super League One, there's still not enough money to make it run on a non-deficit way of running it, I guess?
I mean, the issue you've got, I know firsthand because I ran the female section at Villa for quite a few years. So the game across the country, the female game, is not at the level that needs to be to actually for them to support themselves. So the Villa ladies team, for example, they don't generate enough money over the course of a season to pay for it. So the money is coming from the men's team or the owners. It's the same at Chelsea, it's the same at Arsenal, because if you look, they don't get big crowds. Sometimes they'll get big crowds if they play in a stadium, but if you look at the average of even Arsenal, Chelsea, Man City, they're only getting about 2,000 fans a week. And they're not paying a great deal, but they might pay £5, £8. So, you do the maths on it, it doesn't add up. And they've got 20 full-time players probably earning 40 grand upwards, maybe, per player. So even the maths just on that doesn't add up. So they're always relying on the actual men's team. So Chelsea have been one of the pioneers for the female game. They do it well. They've done it well for years. So any commercial deal they do for the club, say it's Adidas, for example, I'm not sure if the guy is Adidas or not, whoever it is, a percentage of that deal will go to the ladies team.
So that's
whatever commercial deal, whether it's Adidas or whether it's Samsung or whoever it is, a percentage of it goes to the ladies, which is good. It's good. It's good management from the club.
Well, I think what the clubs are doing there, I mean, I watched England play the day before we got shut down for coronavirus, I watched England play Japan in Dallas. I mean, that the gap has definitely, as we've seen in the last couple of years, the gap has changed between definitely the Americans or some of the top teams, national teams, and the English girls has definitely shortened. It's been quite a journey from when I left England, and obviously I coached girls right from the start when I came out to the States to where they are now. So that's down to guys like you. So great stuff on that. On the boys' side, so you did work with the boys' side as well when you were at Villa there. You know, I don't know if anybody that's listening here how much they know about Villa. Of course, Timo's on board now, so he's a Villa fan. So you're got a joint friend there. You produced some cracking players. Cahill, I think, came through your academy at some point. You got Gabby, Grealish, of course, right now. So talk a little bit about the boys' side and how you can consistently produce those types of players that have in the past gone on to play for some England and national teams that have come through your
Yeah, so to be fair to Villa, over the years, especially the years I was there, they were well known for producing good players. So just on Grealish, I remember coaching him when he was under 11, and the boy just had it. He was just, you could just tell he was head and shoulders above anybody in the group, even under 11s. And a lot of the time, unfortunately, in the professional, that's what the academy's built around, because they know that that one player is going to go into the first team. So Jack Grealish is going to, either way, if they stay in the Premier League because of him, they will get, 150 million or whatever it is per season. Or if they sell him, the club are going to get 100 million from him anyway. So straight away, all that work that's gone into him and all the players around him will be covered because of that massive chunk of money that they got. But Jack was just different class. He was just brilliant. There was another lad called Danny Crowley, which was a year younger. Again, I remember seeing him similar age. I've never seen a young player pass a ball as well as he did. Never. He was like watching. He was just a little pro, basically. He was just like watching a Jack Wilshere or something like that. He was just clever on the ball. He was splitting passes, variation of the pass around the pitch. He was just quality. It was really good to watch. But Villa used to base a lot of their work on their youth section. So like you mentioned, Gary Cahill actually came from Sheffield, but he came through a younger section. I think he was like 16 onwards he came in. Same with Gareth Barry when Gareth Barry came in. So we were attracting those players because at the time, when you from under 9 through to under 16, you can only sign players that live within 90 minutes of where you train. So being in Birmingham, we can go either way, any way, so it's quite good where we live because we can attract them. 16 onwards is you can still do the same thing, but then you can go out of the 90 minutes, so you can sign anybody then. And that's where Gareth Barry, Cahill, they came through the kind of the second phase of the academy, and you know produced quality players. I mean, Gareth Barry was. I remember watching Gareth Barry when he made his debut for Villa. They played three. I think he was against Arsenal. Played three at the back. He played as the left-sided central defender. He was just so calm, cool on the ball, and you guys will have seen what a career he's had. You know, he's had an absolutely frightening career. But a lot of clubs want obviously to have a strong academy. You know, I obviously work at Wolves now, and Wolves also have a very good academy. The difference was back then, Villa were always the best team in the Midlands. So if you're the best team in the Midlands, then players want to come to you. So normally you get the best players. So at the moment, it's quite funny where Wolves are the best team in the Midlands because of where they are in the league. So, you know, they're above Villa, West Brom aren't even in there, Coventry aren't in there. So you've got a lot of teams that, you know, are nowhere near us. So I work a lot with our recruitment team as well, and that they're getting the best players in at the moment because of how well the club's doing. And parents get influenced by that all the time.
So in the Midlands there, with so many clubs in the Midlands, it's really a bit like in London. It's not really those players that are who they support. They might be a Villa fan, City fan, you know, West Bromwich Albion fan, or a Wolves fan. they're going to get attracted to the best club at the period of time that's doing the best and doing the having the most success.
And clubs will try anything to get the best players, because they know, if you get that one player, if you get that Jack Grealish at under 9 and he comes through your academy and then gets into your first team, it's massive. Like I said, he either stays in your team and you do well, or you sell him and you make a lot of money from him. So everyone's trying to find that edge to try and get these players in. So obviously you might have spoken to other clubs around the area, and I know you're going to speak to one of my mates at Villa next week who works in the academy, and that's what everyone's doing. They're trying to get the best players in all the time. But you've got Wolves, West Brom, Villa, Blues, Coventry, Walsall. You can go further afield around, but there's a lot of clubs and there's a lot of people trying to get the best players.
So the last thing I'm going to bring up really on the academy on the boys' side is like the MO, what the mission for that boys academy side would be, obviously to get that Jack Grealish, that player that can go and jump into a team. But for the rest of the crew that's supported, the supporting act that's coming through, the time spent with them, how many of those players may end up still having a football career with a lower club or with another club in the championship or first division, or something that they can say that they've got a career in the football world, and then obviously the rest would have to go into the working world and meander that, get their pathway that way. So how many do you think on average, I'm not asking for numbers, just on an average, the mission statement, how many of those people are you trying to recoup some of the finance back by selling them on to other clubs because they don't make the Premier League status?
Yeah, I mean, we're just on everything you just mentioned there. I mean, it's a great point you've made, and there's a good question. Now, obviously, I'm at Wolves now, so it's quite interesting to go into another professional club and see how they do things. So I've gone in, and at Villa, it was quite hard with the academy, because you had certain people in the academy structure at the time that they weren't interested in the rest of the club. So when I worked at Villa and I worked in the community, we used to see thousands of kids a week. So we were a great scouting network for them, because we would see so many players, but they never quite bought into it. But they wanted to do their way with their scouts. So we were like, okay, fair enough. At Wolves, it's a whole new ball game. They're very open-minded. All the departments work together. So the academy are not arrogant. They want to work with, say, the foundation or the development. They're quite open. If they get a player, however it may be, they're willing to listen. But the reason I mentioned Wolves is the academy manager at Wolves now. You guys have probably heard of him, and you've probably seen him play. He's Scott Sellers. Used to play for Newcastle and Leeds. So he's the academy manager at the club now, and he's a great guy, real nice guy, and he gets the bigger picture on the club, and he's obviously very strong on the technical side of it. But he's actually changed the ethos at Wolves Academy. So if you go there now, and it's going to change, and if you went into the changing rooms in the Wolves Academy block, in the changing rooms, they've got pictures of all these players that have made it at Wolves. So people like Robbie Keane, who came through the system at Wolves, so he's on the wall. And then you've got other players in different changing rooms. And Scott wants to change that, because, like the point you made, Anne, is not every player is going to make it. They're not going to be the next Robbie Keane or the next Jack Grealish. So Scott has changed the ethos around it, in terms of he wants everybody coming into the academy to not have that pressure on them, to not walk into the changing room and see this superstar that's made it, because he thinks he's working the other way, that it's getting into their heads and there's too much pressure on them. So he's actually changed it now to, he wants them to enjoy the experience. So if we sign them at under 9s and they stay with us through to under 16s, he wants them to enjoy the experience of being in an academy at Wolves. So they're getting 3 sessions a week. They're getting match days. They're travelling around the country, playing at different training grounds. They're very big on doing international tours. So they might go to the States, they might go to China, they might go to Portugal. They're having a great experience. Now, if they make it as a top player, brilliant. We've got a player on our hands. But we want them to come out of it thinking, right, I've enjoyed that, and they might go to a championship club or they might go to a League One club, or they might go to America and do a scholarship and get a degree out of whatever they're doing. There's players that have actually come through the system, really enjoyed it, but not made it as a footballer. They're now working in entertainment. I think the one guy's a singer, but we actually now highlight that as a success. You know, we look at this guy, he's come through success, but look where he's gone on now. You know, his career's gone that way. And then we also highlight the guys that are playing for Cardiff or in League Two. Again, it's a success. And, you know, you can't just judge success on first team or the superstar player that's gone in there. So I thought that, you know, it's quite a nice way of a professional club to actually focus on it, where other clubs are still very old school, and that's how it's got to be. That's what you want to be. You want to be that superstar. Well, realistically, you're not going to be that superstar.
Man, that's some great stuff there. I like that. So we've spent a lot of time on Villa, and I know that was a lot of your life right now in Villa, and it's put you in good stead for what you moved on. So let's move on to where you went next after the Villa trip.
Yeah, so I came out of Villa 2017. It wasn't through choice. So I mentioned earlier that the team had struggled and they were getting relegated. There was a change of owner. So a lot of things happened at the club, not just me. There was a lot of people that came out of the roles there. And when the new guys came in, the Chinese owner, they wanted to change things. You know, they wanted fresh bodies in there, which was fine. You know, that's a business decision. I get that. That's fine. So it was me. Carl, who obviously Anthony, me, Carl and Matt, who were senior staff, we came out of it and we'd done nothing wrong. You know, we weren't sacked, we weren't made redundant. It was just they wanted to go down a different line. So we came out, and you know, at the time it was hard because I'd been there 16 years full time, nearly 20 years all in when I started. So it was hard to come out of a role that I loved. It was great. You know, everything was still going okay for the ladies and everything else we were doing, but they just wanted to change. So that was hard for me because, like I joked about at the beginning, I did an interview, which wasn't really an interview, and that was it. So then I'd come out of this role, and you know, I'm qualified, I'm quite experienced. Then I had to then go looking for more work. And because of the level I was at, and obviously the salary that I was looking for as well, there wasn't many jobs going around. So I was fortunate I did have time on my hands because obviously they paid me some money to come out of that role. So I was quite fortunate that way. There was no rush to get into anything. And then this was a bit random as well. So I was looking for jobs. So I was using LinkedIn quite a lot. So I was looking at things, you know, getting out there and everything else. And then at that time, we just had my son, Arthur. So he was literally a newborn. So the one night I was on duty, I was looking after him. So I was doing his feed like 3 in the morning or something like that. And I was looking at my phone and I got a message from a guy out in Singapore saying, no, there's a job going here. It's academy manager, I think the role was at the time. And I looked at it and I was like, Singapore, really? So I wasn't going to mention it to my wife because I thought it's just random. What, you know, we've lived where we are now for forever. Our family, it's where I was born. You know, it's where we've went to school and everything else. Why would we ever think about that? So my thought process was, I'm not going to say anything. But then the next day, I was like, oh, I got approached by this guy in Singapore. And then to cut a long story short, my wife's firm, who she works for, they were looking to open up what she does in England out in Singapore. So this was like July 2017, and it kind of snowballed. And then February 2018, we as a family, we moved out to Singapore. So I got that job that they approached me on, and then my wife got to do her work. So I went to Singapore, which was amazing. We were only there for just under a year and a half, and it was amazing. It was a beautiful, I don't know if any of you guys have been, but it's an amazing country. It's that they call it soft Asia because it's not kind of mainland China. If it was mainland China, we probably wouldn't have gone. It's very westernized out there. They seem to do things well, so their government are very clever. They will literally go around the world and they will find the best things in other countries and then implement that into Singapore. So things like the road system, if you went there, it's very American, it's very English, the way the road system is. It's very good. The trains are very kind of Japanese, efficient, reliable, clean. I think I was there for nearly a year and a half, and I never got once delayed on the train, not once.
Oh,
and
wow.
they were spotless. You're not allowed to eat on them, you're not allowed to drink on them, chewing gum's banned. So you get on them, and they were the cleanest things you've ever seen in your life. But anyway, so I went out there and I worked for a company called ESPZen. So it's EPZ or ESPZEN, I think it was. There was an English guy who owned it, jointly with an Australian guy. Now, the English guy, a nice man, real nice man, but his passion was football, but he was actually a banker, worked in a bank out there. So this was kind of his project. So the challenges I felt with him is obviously I'd just come from a professional environment at Villa, and he wanted to do things very, very random. He was very big on spreadsheets, as you expect from a banker. So literally everything was on an Excel document, which sometimes in football you guys will know it doesn't work. Sometimes you got to have a bit more freestyle about what you do, and it can't just be a numbers game all the time. So I found it very difficult and lasted less than 6 months with them. I had to come out of it because it was just mind-blowing. So I've gone from working at a club for like 16 years without any jobs, then going to my next job and leaving within 6 months. So as I came out of that role, I got approached by another academy out there called F17, which is a local-based academy owned by some Singaporean guys, and it was brilliant. My remit really was to go in there and work with their coaches. So I went in as technical director, and I rewrote all of their syllabus and everything else they were doing. And my role really, I didn't do many teams or many sessions. It was all about working with the coaches. So coach education every week with them, getting them in the classroom. And the biggest thing I found with them is their knowledge of the game is very, very good. It's just then applying it to the session. So a lot of the work I did was on the structure and how they would structure a session, because in the classroom they were great. They would give me the answers and they would talk around different things, and then I'd watch it on the pitch and I was like, what are you doing? That's not what you're talking about. So it was how they structure a session, which I kind of drilled into them for numerous months, drilled into them about how to structure sessions and get the best out of the players. And then it wasn't anything wrong with Singapore. We loved it. We had a great time out there. The weather was just beautiful all year round. It was just too far away from home. It was like a 14-hour flight to get home. Friends, family, and as I said, we'd been in this part of the world for 39 years, so we just missed it and wanted to come home. So in the end, we did, and that's when I got the job at Wolves doing international work now.
Well, let's go back to Singapore, because I think I talked to you a little bit before we went on to broadcast. I think for me, when you're at Wolves and you're with Villa, there is a pathway. There's a defined pathway, and there is a motivation for any player that comes in, whether it's the girls or the boys. Really, they want to play for the first team in prospective genders. Going to Singapore, you didn't have that, right? It was a youth club, and they probably went to school after that, or they went into. Give us a little bit of what they were doing, because I think that resonates a little bit more with what we do here in the States.
It's like we talked earlier. It's very similar to how you guys do. So it's kind of the parents and the children pay to play. So the level they were at, you're right. It was called an academy, and there was elite sections to it, but there was also recreational teams. So we covered all elements. So if some kid wanted just to train once a week, we would do that with them. If they were serious about it and they were good, then they could train 3 times a week and play in the better leagues in Singapore. But there was just, like you said, there was just no exit route for them, because they would get to 16 and then that was it. That's where it stopped. They have got a league out there. It's not the best level, and they're not, but that's what they aspire to. They want to go and play for some of these teams, but they just weren't at a professional level. Now, I wasn't there a long time, but I sat in on a lot of their Singaporean FA meetings, and unfortunately, the structure again was just poor, so they were never going to develop very fast because the structure was poor. So I do feel for the players, because it's like you guys, where are they going to go? You see some real strong players, and then it's just trying to get them that opportunity to get into it at the next level. And Singapore is behind the UK, is behind the US, because your MLS and everything else. You've probably got regional, you've probably got stronger league structures in terms of what you guys playing already. They didn't have that. And they tried, but they actually, I was very fortunate where they used to take teams around Asia. So when I was at ESPN, we actually flew to Thailand and we played in a tournament in Bangkok, which was a good standard. You got teams coming from Hong Kong, from Thailand, from Malaysia, from Singapore, from Japan. They all come in, so you get to see the levels. And from that, you could see Singaporean football was miles behind, because they were getting drilled every game. They were losing 5-6-0. But we had good players, so unfortunately, it is the structure around it.
So, what was the top sport in Singapore? Was it soccer? Was it football?
Football, yeah. So they're English speaking. The mad passionate about soccer. They absolutely love it, and there's a lot of expats out there that get involved with it as well. But the actual Singaporeans, the locals, they're obsessed. We think we're obsessed with football. They are obsessed. The time difference for the Premier League. I mean, I love it, but I wasn't going to get up at 4 a.m. to watch a game. No chance. I wanted my sleep, especially when I got a little. But they would get up and they would watch the games, and absolutely mad.
So, as a pay-per-play system, what could you say with the two clubs that you're out there in relation to the dollar or to the pound? What was the average that they would pay, or the cost of investment for a pay-to-play for a kid in Singapore?
So in Singapore, they would, with F17, the second club that I went to, they would work on blocks of 10-week blocks, and I think they paid. It was up to close to 800 Singaporean dollars. I've got a converter on my phone, so I can try and work out what it would break down to. So I've done that on 800 Singaporean dollars. That's 563 US dollars for 10 weeks.
Okay. And then they get about what, 4 of those in a year? 4, 10 or 5 10-week blocks in a year.
Yeah, so they'll get 4 of those, and then they would, because of the school holidays and everything else, sometimes they might shut down, but they would still have offerings. They might do soccer schools, they might put on training nights. But the one thing that they're very, very big on the education side. So, for example, if a child has got an exam, there's no football and exam. It's literally just exam. That's all you're doing. So you don't see. Sometimes you might not see them for a month because that's all they're doing. You kind of blew my mind a little, because I've got children. The last thing, Molly's only 10. I wouldn't want her just studying 24/7. I think sometimes they need a release from it. Sometimes going to play football for an hour or 2 hours is actually good for them, but they're very very single-minded on that one, and I think sometimes that will affect their development too, because if you miss 6 weeks, 8 weeks of no contact, obviously you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle with your development.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that ties up into another question I was going to ask. I had an interview with Birchie over at Ostersund's about culture. So the cultural differences and the culture that you had within. You said you left within 6 months on one club and then moved to F17. So what's the culture like within the club? How did you set the culture, and how different is it from obviously England, which is what the Midlands, is what
Yeah, so I mean the first club I went to in Singapore, they were owned by an English guy and an Australian. So the English guy was just the way he did it. So it wasn't anything to do with the Singaporeans. It was the way he wanted to do it. So it was just a little clash there. The Australian guy was great. He always said to me, Joe, you're the expert. You do what you think you need to do. but then the other guy didn't want me to do it. So those two were clashing, and then I was just there kind of, well, which way am I going? So that's why I left, because nothing was getting done. In terms of F17, the cultural side of it, they're very respectful, and I'm not saying I'm, the fans have all knowledge. I'm not. I don't know everything, but because of my background and where I've worked, that they were very open-minded to what I wanted to do. So when I talked about the coach education earlier, I literally watched them for a month, and then I went to the owner and said, right, this is what we need to do. We need to upskill the staff if you want to produce better players. I'm not going to come in here and all of a sudden you're going to produce a load of players. It's got to come from your staff. They're the ones who've got to deliver to them. And he was like, yeah, fine. Do whatever you want to do. And so it was a nice working environment. The issues I had at F17 were not the owner. It was the people not involved in the football side. So I headed up all the technical work, but then you had a financial officer, you had a operations guy, and they were new into football and they didn't know football. And again, like I said about the spreadsheets, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you've got to know, and you don't have to have worked in football all the time, but it certainly helps when you then get a job in football. They were doing things, and I was like, no, that's not my area of expertise, but I know you're doing it wrong. Like the marketing on how to do things was just rubbish. And I was fortunate enough that I'd worked with some good marketing guys in England, so I had half an idea. The social media, again, absolutely rubbish. But the stuff they would do, so I was kind of at loggerheads with them about that stuff. And it was only because I cared, because I wanted it to be good, that I was kind of getting involved with it all and trying to help that way.
Well, cool. Well, we're getting towards the end here. I've taken up a lot of your time so far, and I really appreciate it. But let's talk now with where you're at now, Wolves, and the stunning progress that they've made in the Midlands and in the Premier League. So you're the international football project manager, right? Director, manager?
Yes. So my role now is international projects manager at Wolves. So some of the stuff I missed out at Villa was there was a lot more to my job than just the girls' elite section and some work in the schools. So we also worked with we did a lot of disability football as well. So the guys with special needs, we were quite big on that. Obviously, we had the girls section, we had development centres. But one of the other things we also, and that's how obviously I know you guys, is because we did some international work as well. So I also did a lot of international work with the club. So we came out to you in Texas. I also did a tour, I think it was before the Texas tour, where we went to Philadelphia, Chicago, Portland. I'd also been out to Hong Kong with Villa and done some work with the Premier League. And we've done some work in Ireland. We've done some work in Italy. We've done some work in Sweden. So I've done a lot of that work as well. So when I was in Singapore, I actually connected F17 with Wolves. So because the guy at Wolves, I knew him, I connected them. So now F17 are official partner of Wolves. So when I came back, it was one of those, you got any jobs? And they said, oh yeah, we're trying to expand our international reach now. So this role I went for. I got to the final two. I had to do a second interview about how I would shape it and how I would organise their international work, and I was fortunate enough to get the job. So like you said, Anthony, Wolves have literally they've come from nowhere to 6th in the Premier League, and now we're one of the best teams in the league. We've played Liverpool and we've given them good games. We probably should have beaten them. We're doing well in the Europa League. 3 seasons ago, we were in the Championship. I think 5 years ago, we was in League One. So their rise has been absolutely frightening. Now, we're owned by a Chinese group called Fosun. They're a huge company worldwide, and Wolves are one of their many companies. So, the difference now is that the Chinese ownership are really, really good. So obviously, with the first example I'll give is what's happening now around the world with the coronavirus. They've been so supportive. So all the staff at Wolves are still getting paid full time. We're all working from home. I'm fortunate enough that I've got things that I can do from home even now to kind of talk talking and networking and talking to our partner clubs and supporting them with what they can do at this time. There's other people that are match day based, they can't work, but the club is still paying them. So the actual ethos around the club at the moment is really, really good. So my work at the moment is I'm the link between our partners worldwide. So we've got guys out in America that we work with, we've got guys out in China, Singapore, Thailand. So I'm the link basically, and I will organise a lot of the activities that will come through me, and I work heavily with our academy. So half my time is I'm based at the academy at the training ground. So obviously I'm trying to keep my eye in, because obviously, like I said, I'm a coach. That's my background. I love coaching, but I found that as I develop my career, I spend more time behind a desk than I do on the grass, which I think that's just the way it is. But I do love the coaching. I was out in the States actually, end of February, beginning of March, just before all the airports got closed, and I had a few weeks of coaching, which I really, really enjoyed, because it's few and far between at the moment. But the fix I get now is I get to watch all of our academy sessions, so I don't take any teams. I'm very fortunate that I can go and watch the under-23s train, I can go and watch the under-9s train. I literally have a free reign of, I can go around and watch, and it's quite good in a way, because I don't have the responsibility of taking the team and having that in my head all the time, because the one thing I'm doing is I'm selling our expertise around the world. So when we partner with people, they literally get everything we do at Wolves. So we will give them training syllabus, we will do coach education, we will do webinars like this, we will talk around sports science analysis and everything else. So I get to see all that. So I'm kind of upskilling myself by working with all the different departments at Wolves. It's a great job. I love it. I've been there since last July. I've been to America twice with them. I'm setting up different things around the world, but obviously the coronavirus has put a stop to all the travel at the moment. So that's the only negative now. Is same with you guys, is we can't get on the grass, we can't do any work, and it's frustrating, but I think we're all in the same boat.
Yeah. Well, I know you work with GIS out here, right?
Yeah. So they're one of our partners. Not, we're not official to GIS, but we are working with them. That was something I inherited. They were already working with the club, which is fine. They've got some, but I know they're struggling a little bit, and like most kind of companies out there, they are struggling. But we're also working with universities out there. We've got some links with some MLS clubs. I was recently out in Atlanta and met with Atlanta United, their academy director, which was great. It was a great link up. So again, part of my role is we're going to link Atlanta with Wolves. So we're going to do some kind of idea share. So our coaches will go there, their coaches will come to us. We will play them at academy level as well. So we'll share some knowledge with them. So that's quite a nice partnership that we're working on too.
I think that's invaluable here in the States. Obviously, I've been here 20 years now, and I think all we're ever looking for is that ability to be able to share ideas, how to get better, how to have our systems and processes working better, and really, throughout the years, connection with likes of yourself, Joe, and Scotty's a really good friend of mine. We used to work together years ago up in Partick Thistle and Rangers, and so they've been invaluable, I think, to how we can keep the game over here progressing and not standing still. Having that multicultural investment into the clubs over here is important. So I think in your role, anything in the States, and I'm sure that's across the world now, would be invaluable, that you would be open to sharing ideas, because I think a lot of clubs aren't open to sharing ideas. They think it's a close.
That's a valid point, a real good one. And just two things. So again, myself and even the club, we don't think we know everything. We don't. We're always open to learning and trying new things, and that's why even partnering with Atlanta United, we're not saying we're better than Atlanta. The way they do things will be different to us, but if we can pick things out there that we can use, we're going to use it. The academy are always doing CPD events, and I sat on one last Thursday. It was we've got a couple of guys that worked at Crew, so they worked in the Dario Grady at Crew, and they talked for 2 hours on what they did at Crew and how different it was. So we're trying to take ideas. We've got one this week where There's a guy from the Premier League who spent some time with Formula One, working with in elite environments, which is quite useful. So always, we're looking to upskill ourselves. But the one thing I would say, and I'm not just saying this because I'm an employee at Wolves, is our academy are very open. That a lot of the guys in the academy worked in the academy or Wolves in the Championship or even League One. So they've got massive egos, as where sometimes when I was at Villa, some of the academy staff, and they're not there now, it's different there, but some of them were just, they weren't interested. They weren't interested in sharing the knowledge. As well with us, if you're a partner with us, you get everything we do. So everything that comes from Nuno in the first team and filters down through the academy, we will share it. At the end of the day, football is not rocket science, is it? I could present to you guys about how we do things at Wolves, and you'd probably think, oh, it's quite interesting. But then you reflect on it and think, well, okay, well, I knew 90% of that maybe, but that 10% I'm going to take and I'm going to use. Now, football is, yes, it is evolving and it does change, and it might be a 4-3-3 that's in fashion, or at Wolves we play a 3-4-3 or 3-5-2, but it's only subtle tweaks around the pitch that make these formations work.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. Yeah, even just doing these webinars for the last week or so, I've taken little bits from each one. Just having conversations and just being open with each other, I think, can help improve processes and how we operate, and even how we educate and coach our kids. Well, Joe, I know we got Timo on. We got a couple of other people. We'll give it a couple of minutes and see if there's any questions coming in. But I would like to say, absolute pleasure to have you on. It's been far too long since we've had a chit chat. So it's been great to be able to talk to each other in this short time. I guess what he's looking there for. It's been good to talk to you for a short time, and I've got a plan. Obviously, I was supposed to be in England at this point until C19 came in, so I was going to be making some trips around to you guys during that. Now that's been moved to October, so I'm hoping I can come over and spend a day with you in Birmingham in October. So I hope that can come up. But apart from that, unless you've got anything else, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for taking your time out. It's been very interesting. If there's anything from you want to elaborate on or talk about, feel free.
No, not really. I kind of ticked up everything that we've done. Football. We're all privileged to work in football. It's great. Sometimes, like I said, I do miss being on the grass more. When I was doing it in the States a few weeks ago, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I went to Maine and did some work in Maine, and I worked with quite a few girls teams, and it was just when you're doing something and you think, oh yeah, I enjoy this. I enjoyed doing this coaching work, and the girls groups were amazing. Right from under 10s through under 19s I did, and they were great. They were really, really good, and it's good. I've got a career in football, and I do thoroughly enjoy the international work, because now I'm gonna talk to people like you guys, and I'll get to travel around the world, and it's great because I'm doing football.
We need to get you back to Texas sometime. I know that I think they went through GIS, but we have a local club that are they're out of Weatherford, which is kind of west of Fort Worth, but they're called Metro West Wolves now, I think. So they got the Wolves badge. I think they went through GIS to probably do it. It's a little small club, but
yeah, we need to see if they're still an official member. If they're not, they won't be using the Wolves badge.
They're small. They're very small, but we need to get you out for sure, and maybe we can hold a conversation down the road about that. So
yeah, definitely.
So again, Joe, absolutely, it's been fantastic. It's been great to catch up with you. I hope you tune in to Tom next week. We got some great people coming on, and of course he's one of your real good friends. So
definitely include me on the Tom one. I'll definitely tune into that, and I'll have a lot of questions for him as well.
Well, I'll send you that link. So man, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for giving up an hour or so of your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Joe.
My pleasure, mate. Enjoy next week with Tom. Tom's a great guy. Tom's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet in football. I think Tom's one of my biggest success stories. He actually came and worked for me, and it was he went then to the academy, which is a massive loss for us. But he's such a good coach and he's such a good guy as well.
Yeah, it'd be great to catch up with him as well. I haven't spoken to him for a while. He's a little on the quiet side sometimes. So, all right, man.
Yeah, very knowledgeable, very good. Okay, mate. Thanks all.
All right, thanks, Joe.
Take care.
We're offline now, so we're good.